I quite often hear riders say that they're too stiff, they're too old, or they're too late. Maybe they rode when they were younger and they're coming back. Maybe they've had a family. And the good news is that all of that is complete nonsense. There is nothing holding you back. And a lot of the time it's because you're not quite sure what to do. Now, rider stiffness and feeling very tight in the saddle is a very common thing that we all experience. And unfortunately, because of the way life is, that we often neglect all of those muscles and we don't stretch them out properly. One of the key areas that we need really good flexibility and length in our muscles are our hip flexors and also our hamstrings. So our hip flexors run along the front of our body and our hamstrings run along the back of our body. And those muscles are particularly important because they actually contribute to our pelvic position. So if you're a rider who rides in anterior tilt, so anterior tilt meaning that the pelvis is tucked forwards in an anterior position, that's usually because you've got very tight hip flexors and potentially very weak hamstrings. What do we want to be able to do as riders is to be able to find that neutral pelvis and be able to have mobility in our seat and our pelvis to move with the motion of the horse. And that's going to improve your canter, your sitting trot, and allow you to get much better marks when you're walking your horse, either in a collected walk or a walk on a free rein. So let's have a look at the hip flexors. The first stretch that we're going to come into is a runner's lunge stretch. So you can see here that I've got my weight on my front leg and I'm just starting to push into that position. And here I'm starting to feel a stretch down the front of my thigh and my hip flexors. If we wanted to make this more comfortable, then we can just come to a more upright position and we're still going to get some length through our hip flexor. And we want to make sure that our pelvic bones are equal and that we're not in an anterior tilt, that we're tucking the pelvis under as much as we can so that it remains nice and neutral. Once you start to create more space within your hip flexors and length in your hip flexors, you're going to be able to lean and lunge forward to a much greater level. If you wanted to increase the stretch, we could also add in a quad stretch just by lifting the back leg and holding that there. Now that's really important, especially if you want a nice long dressage leg. And also if you want to start unlocking your pelvis, then these stretches through the hip flexor are going to be absolutely key for you. The important thing about stretching is that you don't want to overdo it. So you don't want to be pushing the muscle and the tendon into a state where it's going to feel painful and that you're actually going to do more harm than good. So flexibility and the length is something that you're going to build up over a prolonged period of time, and you're going to build that up by being consistent in your rider fitness. And all of that becomes very easy and accessible when you have a plan to follow and you have some guidance and accountability as to what stretches to do, when to do them, and following a very good protocol to improve your riding. The next exercise I'm going to show you is a single leg hamstring stretch. So here I've got my leg extended out. We actually flex the toe towards us. And then what we want to be able to do is start to reach forward, and we're going to get a stretch through those hamstrings. And it's really just about holding that stretch. If we wanted to add in a back opener, we can also extend our arm upwards, and we're going to get a nice stretch through our lower back, as well as also targeting the hamstrings. So these exercises and these stretches are absolutely fantastic for creating the supple rider that you deserve to be. You're going to be much more flexible, you're going to be more mobile, and you're going to be more relaxed. So those muscles, instead of them being tight and contracted, and they're not able to absorb the energy of the horse, when they're much longer and much more soft and supple, then the energy is going to be passing and flowing through your body much more easily, and that's going to give a much better impression on the horse from anybody who's watching on the ground. So I hope you enjoyed those exercises and those stretches to help improve your rider flexibility. In the next video, we're going to be looking at one of the key problems, which is an anterior pelvic tilt, and how you can actually improve the mobility through your pelvis, which is going to help the feeling that you have in the canter, in the sitting trot, and in the walk.